Welcome to another installment of Pepper someone else's rear end. It seems that every time I'm editing the video of the CM3588 project, something interesting ends up happening and I have to interrupt it. I was trying really hard not to lean on this because there is a lot of good videos online explaining what's going on. Especially for the first case that I'm about to talk about. But something surfaced recently I really noticed now, and I have to address this because, well, it's too big not to address. And on top of everything else, yesterday we had another case of something equally crazy, and let's bundle up all these things together and just take a laugh. Because even if you are on the defense side and you just find yourself holding this thing together, okay, just keep in mind one thing: it's not your problem. This is the sum of very large and unapologetic and actually irresponsible executives that are making bad calls on a lot of fronts. And at this point, you're just trying to hold things together when everyone else is really not interested in keeping things safe anymore. Now, if you think this is an extreme, think about it for a second, because a few years ago, a lot of these companies in large organizations had something like a list of things that you were allowed to use, and that was seen by developers, and I was included in that list for a very long time, as a bad thing, something that would is seen as a roadblock, essentially, because you couldn't use the last thing, the very tippy top, the last cool library that did a lot of clever stuff that you wanted to save yourself from implementing and save time that way. Now you have full access to NPM. You have full access to Maven, if anyone is still using that. You have full access to pip and many of its dependencies. So when I say, and I said this in a lot of trainings this far, in a few cases, where I say that the best way for you to implement a toolbox for any C2 at this point is to use a dependency management, a cargo from Rust, Maven from Java, pip from Python, you name it. These endpoints are called time and time again. They reach inside the organization, and they're going to be not just on the developer's machine, they're going to be on the CI/CD pipelines, they're going to be in the production during the installation, they're going to be on the cache, on the caching repository internally if they use those as well. So in that case, it might find containment, but also persistent as well, because if it caches in some organization or a group of developers that are not up to speed with the latest security incidents, might actually have a cached version of the infected dependency internally that will outlive the outside. And that is interesting by itself, because it's going to end up compromising the environment sort of as a persistence mechanism in that way. So it's a very interesting from an attacker's standpoint and threat actor emulation as well, and something that we're actually exploring in a training scenario. But here's the crazy thought. The widespread effect of some of these supply chain attacks, and this one is another one of those cases. I guess someone that is not geography inclined can actually learn some clever things and fun facts about the many countries affected, if it chooses to do so. Because the widespread is this is something else. Like, look at this list, okay? You have a lot of unclaimed, okay, denied. We all know what this means, right? There's a chance for it to be actually legit. A great percentage of the times, based on my experience, a lot of these companies choose to deny instead of owning a security incident. My opinion, it's a bad trade. It actually shows that you're not worried about security at all. You're just worried about the effect and the downside of the security incident itself, and you're ashamed of that fact instead of being focused on owning the problem and finding the solution. And so I think although Cisco is in the list and it's a very prominent name here, it's big companies here that usually associate or in the last few years been making bold claims about the new pieces of technology going by. And you also have a few AI companies, which is cool, because this package is actually related to AI. So there's no surprise there. There's a very cool description of this here on this website. Just take a look at it to keep track of it. 19 countries affected, 57 alleged victims, 4 had the balls to confirm this. And let me get something straight. The installment is called Pepper on Someone Else's Rear End. This is actually a Portuguese saying that we have lying around, and we use a lot when we are making fun of things. But owning the fact that you've been compromised, it's not a sign of weakness, but the other way around. It's actually a good sign. It's not only a sign that you admit that you made a mistake, it's actually a sign as well that there's stuff that needs to be done. Okay? If you don't admit that you've been compromised, you're ashamed of your environment's capabilities and the backlash of that. You question your own capabilities because you don't want to own that fact. And that means that it's very likely for that to happen again. On someone that owns that fact that, yeah, we've been compromised again, we'll try harder next time. And this is a wake-up call. It also shows that you might actually be serious. Not that most of these corporations are not that serious about security, because let's think about it. In the past, we had a number of companies, and I usually clown around a lot, saying that things were too safe, and they came together and said, "Well, SOC personnel they're having too much free time. We need to solve that problem. We need to find a way to get them interested in and get things interesting again. It's getting too safe. It's not good. So let's spice things up. Let's add things into the environment, like pieces of technology that we don't really know and understand how they work or how to make them safe anymore. And let's plug everything together into an environment where there's no borders anymore, because everyone's on cloud, and keep the same problems that we left in trying to solve this for. On top of everything else, let's do software as a service, but instead of using the flowing cash in from the service signatures, because this is basically as a service, right? You're paying monthly to have access to this. Instead of using that to improve the software, let's make it worse. Let's make sure that we have as little security outlets as possible. We have as many dependencies as is humanly and computationally possible to increase the likelihood of keeping things spicy enough for SOC to lose hours of sleep, because apparently they had too much free time. That's what I'm getting from these corporations. But that is not the only case. That is not the only case because that is not the only case. Why? Because NPM is at it again, and this time I think this ecosystem is actually going to be elected as the C2 of the year. I might end up creating something like that if I ever get to create what's called like t-shirts and all. Probably this is going to end up as a t-shirt, I guess. NPM seems to win every month, every other month. We get a supply chain out of NPM, and at this point, I think it's actually I start to understand why even malware developers are getting lazy and using JavaScript as an initial access. Well, think about it. It's running on the server side now as well. So you're not just affecting users and doing makeshift cross-site scripting attacks now. You're actually going to end up in any CI/CD pipeline in many machines, not just on developers, but actually on servers as well. In a lot of the cases, you're going to have crazy libraries like Axios, which is apparently used for HTTP requests. And then it's all over the place. Every other package apparently depends on it. And it had 100 million downloads a week. This is really something. Now, this is not exclusive to NPM. Okay, and if you're wondering why am I taking so many jokes, cracking so many jokes at NPM? Let's get something straight. This is not just an NPM problem. Any dependency management from Maven to Cargo, in anything in between, is a potential C2 toolbox at this point. Think about it. You're going to have cache servers, as I said before. These things are going to be cached on the server. If that is the case, in that case, you're not only going to have a spread, you're actually going to have persistence, because they're likely to be cached in there for a while, unless the team actually realizes that is infected and gets rid of it. So it may outlive the infection on the internet in that case, which is something that is a byproduct of the current model of development. So it's not exclusive to NPM. You can also have the same problems with Maven. You can also have the same problems with Cargo. I used to crack jokes and play with Maven in that sense, between ourselves in the teams, and make a few things just to make fun of juniors as a haze, most of it initially, and we abused that fact, like the Maven that the team uses, the cache servers, and so on, to play clever tricks at each other when things were a bit busy and too serious, and we needed to decompress a bit. But this is getting really serious, okay? Because not only because of the spread, and actually the entire kill chain was very cleverly called out by someone that also has a channel on YouTube called Network Chuck, and then it's a very nice way of explaining what went on without diving into security technical jargon, which is, to me, it's something really interesting to see, and well put out. So I'm not going to try to beat that source. Just take a look at it. It's awesome. It's like a short video. But instead, let's focus on the impact. Now, it's very interesting here. We start to see connections to nation state sponsored attacks, and it seems that every time something this big happens, we tend to point fingers onto nation state. I've been very, very outspoken about the fact that I'm very skeptical of these claims. I'm very skeptical of these claims, and the reason why is very simple. It's very easy for someone to plant something on an attack chain to mimic the modes of operation of a given group at this point, so that an attack looks like as it came from this or that group. At this point, most of that information is made public for good or bad. Actually, there's more good facts about that than bad ones. But regardless of that, it's very easy to mimic, and so I would take any claim and any claims as to pointing the source of the attack with a heavy dose of salt. Now, it doesn't mean that this is not effective. And actually, this is one of the attacks that is starting to reveal itself as easy as it gets. But it's by far not the only one. Not by only one. And the reason why I decided to make the video is actually because of the last one. Before we go there, let me start you off with a question. If you were on the hiring seat and you're sitting in front of you, have someone that was a part-time developer for a year, would you hire it? More importantly, would you take its advice on where or how the future of software development or software engineering would be in what a number of time after that? 1 year, 2 years, 6 months. Okay, if you look into the CEOs of many of the AI companies making claims about how software engineers are going to be replaced in any given amount of time, they tend to land between 6 months to a year every year. I usually say that they said it's 6 months, but they didn't say exactly when to start counting from. So it's always 6 months away, right? But if you look into their experience, in some of them actually have no developer experience whatsoever, and then one of them has a 1 year part-time developer experience. I would say that it's not a very good source of advice when it comes to software engineering perspective. However, one of those companies with such experience actually got his source code leaked. Cloud Code got its code leaked out to the web once again. And if you're interested in understanding how exactly and how creative can one be with regular expressions, I would say take a look at that source code. It's hilarious. It's not only hilarious from the code quality standpoint, because it's on JavaScript, so you have to endure that. It's not pleasant, but it's going to be fun. I can assure you, it's fun. At least if you stick just to the regular expressions part, that alone is going to be an eye-opening, because you can see how creative they've been with regular expressions in all kinds of features. There are entire features that are sitting on top of that. And that usually is something that you rarely see on an application of that kind. So It's really something else. But the cherry on top of that, it's not that this comes from a company that says that developers are going to be replaced, and the fact that actually there's a source that I'm going to be linking on another video about how source code securities, the source code is evolving, where from 2024 till now, we have a rate of an average of 10K bugs a month. That's an increase. That's an exponential increase since 2024 and now. And that is attributed mostly in a few studies from vibe coding. And now what we might say is that, okay, AI is making bad code. Actually, no. The problem is not exactly that we have something generating bad code. The problem is that we have companies putting code out without being analyzed, without being security, without going through security checks, without going through audits, without having any software architecture documentation or preparation in them, and also they're building software to be temporary, not something that is meant to be stable and long lasting, because they want to sell you another version or another package, a premium package, a pro package, an enterprise package 3 weeks from now. So the focus is on sale. The focus is not on stability. And that is the reason why we have such a cheesy software these days. Something that we wanted to have, we thought that software as a service would solve from the software engineering standpoint, because you have a steady stream of cash flow coming in. And theory-wise, you could say that there would be enough budget for software to improve. The margin is not on improving software, the margin is on improving profit. And that's why we see a lot of intrusions. So what we are seeing right now is a combination of many factors that is basically making all big enterprises vulnerable to these kind of attacks. Supply chain attacks, dependency-based attacks, and CI/CD pipelines, which to me makes things very, very interesting. So that was it for this week. I am about to close the M3588. The best way to keep a closer track of what's happening on that front, if you really want to replicate that, is to follow the mailing list of OpenBSD for the ARM developer development, because I'm keeping them in the loop, mainly because that board is not officially supported, and based on what I've seen thus far, that specific board has a wide family, and if they were to be interested in bringing that up, it would open up support in the project for a lot of other boards. I don't know if that is something the project is interested in or not. And so I'm keeping them in the loop if it happens to be the case. I guess you may be on the verge of being able to build a NASH on OpenBSD with OpenBSD, which to me would be ballistic. I'll see you on the next one. Take a very, very good look at your dependencies, and just keep an eye on that. See you on the next one.